So obviously the college football playoff rankings are coming out tomorrow night. Mm-hmm. And it will essentially determine whether or not Ole Miss is hosting a playoff game. And with Kiffin gone, with the possibility of Weiss gone, we'll see about that. There's been a lot of, well, obviously they have to drop off, just like Florida State. We got that on the text line earlier. They have to treat them like Florida State. That was the precedent. That's a disingenuous at best argument. Here's why. That was a 14 playoff. This is a 12. Florida State dropped from 4 to 5. They still would have made it in a 12-team playoff. But more specifically, you got a sample size with what Florida State looks like without their starting quarterback. They played 2 games without him and were very clearly worse. You got to see it on the field. You got to watch it. You got to look at it. They were worse without him.
You know what makes me bother me about that? They were worse. They still won.
They still won. Now, I argued that for their inclusion. I wanted them to make it. I think they should have. When you win all your games, you should have made the 14 playoff.
Yeah.
I disagreed with the decision, but
I did too.
That is why they made the decision. The difference in this case is you're talking about coach, not player, and you also don't have the sample size. So you can think that Ole Miss is going to get worse without Lane Kiffin and possibly Charlie Weiss Jr. You can think that, but you don't know for sure. It's probably 1 + 1 logic to believe that they are offensively going to get worse without him, but you don't know for sure, and more importantly, by how much? By how much? How much worse are they? Are they 1 spot? Well, why just 1? Why do you drop them 1 spot instead of 2? Well, are they 5 spots worse? Well, why? Why did you put them ahead of Virginia but behind Oklahoma? You can't quantify it other than, well, I think that's what they are. Without the data point of this is what they are without him, can you in good faith drop them down behind teams and keep them in front of teams based on, well, I think they might look like this? That's a really tough precedent to set. They have said themselves that they're not going to set that, but we'll see what a committee room actually does. But if you think it's as simple as, oh, just drop them, they lost Kiffin, you need to quantify that. Because you are literally putting a number next to how much worse they got without Lane Kiffin, and you need to be able to show your work on why if you're going to make this decision whether or not they get selected in the playoff. So there's a difference between what you think should happen and what's going to happen. There's a very real chance they don't move Ole Miss at all tomorrow night because they have said themselves, absent the data point, they can't make a decision.
2 thoughts on that. One, that is what Hunter Yurachek said in the interview with Reese Davis following the playoff rankings reveal last week. And then, albeit secondhand, but I mean, sometimes that's how you get information, from people within the college football playoff committee structure. There was a discussion. And if you remember, so you've got Clark. What's his first name? The Brigadier General, the
Richard.
Rich.
Right?
Rich Clark.
How did you forget?
I just did.
Okay.
So Rich Clark now, and before that, help me again. The previous executive,
Bill Hancock, right?
Bill Hancock. Thank you. I just.
How do I know that?
You've heard me say it a million times. Yeah. They've talked about the fact that their role is to make sure that the deliberations are going by the guidelines. And so Rich Clark's role is to make sure that the committee understands this is how you discuss a team. This is what you are allowed to upgrade for, downgrade for. This is the data that you use, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there was a discussion within the committee meeting last week about if this Lane Kiffin thing happens, what do we do with that? And they talked specifically about the rule where the evaluation of a team can change based on losing players or coaches. And the ultimate decision that was handed down, or what they were told by the administrators of the committee, is you cannot use that as a data point because you do not have a sample size. You do not have a data point. You do not have a game tape that you can watch where Lane Kiffin wasn't the coach of this team. And so what you have is this team with their body of work as is, period. The coaching situation does not come into play and will not even be discussed within the committee. Now, that's not to say that it couldn't be in the back of committee members' minds, but in terms of discussion and debate on how the teams are being ranked, that is not part of the conversation within this college football playoff committee.
Yeah. If you take them at their word anyway, that is what they said. And
all I can do is tell you what they said in the meeting.
Absolutely. And it's easier to defend that decision, too, if you're in the committee, because you have to defend your decisions, right? Miami, by the way, they're going to have a meltdown because they're not going to make the playoff, and they're going to be the highest-ranked ACC team, and somebody from the ACC, not Miami, is going to make it, and they won't, even though they're going to be ranked ahead of them because that's how the conference and everything worked out. They're going to lose it. And so if you're a committee member, you need to be able to, I keep using the word quantify, because we get this on the text line. They should fall to 15. Well, why? Why not 14? Why not 16? Why 15?
I think that was a joke.
Oh, just to,
because he says, as an unbiased state fan, I think Ole Miss should drop to 15.
But anybody that wants to make that claim, you are required to quantify it. That's what the committee will have to do. And they answer to people, by the way. So they have to be able to stand on the decisions that they make. And sometimes their stances are ridiculous. They don't make any sense, but at least they have to stand on them. And it's so much easier to stand on, we didn't know, we only went with what we know. That's easy to stand on. That's easy to defend. But if you say, drop Ole Miss, right, to where they have to go to Virginia instead of hosting Virginia, and they go beat Virginia by 28 points, it's like, wait, why did you drop those guys again? That didn't make any sense. But if Ole Miss hosts a playoff game and they lose, you can at least point back to, we didn't know. We had no idea what they looked like. Now we know. But we couldn't have made that decision based on a guess. So it's easy to stand on data as opposed to, well, I think this might be that way.
And looking, Borges, we were talking about this in the break a second ago. I look back at the week-to-week rankings this year. So week 11 was your first week of rankings. So everybody was not ranked the previous week. In week 12, you had one team in the top 15 that fell multiple spots. That was BYU following their loss to Texas Tech. They dropped 5 spots from 7 to 12. In week 13, you had one team in the top 15 that dropped and remained in the top 15. That's Alabama. And they fell from 4 to 6 after a loss. And then this past week, week 14, in the top 15, nobody dropped more than 1 spot. Ole Miss dropped 1 spot without playing a game, and Utah dropped 1 spot after a 4-point win where they looked pretty bad against Kansas State. They scored 51, but they gave up 47, and they dropped 1 spot. So you've only got – you don't have an example of a team dropping multiple spots through 3 weeks after a win. And that's where Ole Miss sits. I mean, they're coming off a win at 11-1 with SEC next to their name. So – Ohio State won, they're 12-0, they're going to stay at number 1. Indiana won, they're 12-0, they're going to stay at number 2. Georgia is now 11-1 after their victory. I think we can assume they're going to go up to number 3. Texas Tech won big. I think we can assume they're going to number 4. Then you got Texas A&M at 11-1 coming off a loss. The 2 previous teams ranked in the top 15 that we have seen lose this year have dropped either 5 or 6 spots. If you drop A&M 4 spots, that's at 7, where Ole Miss currently is. If you drop them 5 spots, that's at 8, where Oklahoma is. If you drop them 6, that's all the way to number 9, which is outside of hosting, where Notre Dame currently is. Now, they have a head-to-head win over Notre Dame, so it seems unlikely that they would fall below Notre Dame, although Notre Dame has a head-to-head loss to Miami, who's 3 spots behind them. So how far does A&M drop? Does Oregon move up to number 5? Ole Miss up to 6, Oklahoma up to 7, and then you slot A&M at 8, 1 spot in front of Notre Dame? Is that the most likely outcome?
No idea. How do they handle something like this? They've never been asked to do something like this.
They're drawing names out of a hat, guys, for the most part. They really are.
So we feel pretty comfortable about what the top 4, maybe the top 5 is going to look like. After that,
who knows?
I don't know.